The title God of War can remind you of Kratos if you're a gamer, or Ares if you've been a viewer of our channel and know your mythologies. But in Egyptian mythology, it was a man with the head of a donkey, Seth. Weird, isn't it? So what forms the myth of the Egyptian god? Let's find out in this Mythically Mad video. So Seth is a name that denotes power, but in ancient Egypt, it also represents chaos, wickedness, storms, confusion, and devastation. He was dreaded by both humans and gods because he killed Osiris. Many recall him for his complicated personality too. He was connected to chaos, foreign land, and people, and the color red. While his name is typically translated as instigator of confusion, he was portrayed as a Seth animal, a creature with 4 legs, a large nose, a long pointed ears that were quite recognizable. Seth has always played a significant role in Egyptian mythology and worship, in the belief that the deity would answer the followers' requests. Seth was depicted on thousands of steles, particularly from the Middle Kingdom. These included desires for a favorable outcome in court, for deceased family members to be protected in the afterlife. Seth protected anyone who spent a lot of time away from home, including soldiers, hunters, merchants in general. According to Egyptian tradition, he acquired Egypt's deserts from Geb, the soil god. For this reason, he was revered as the guardian of commerce caravans and known as the Egyptian deity of Oasis. In order to ensure the victory of the Egyptian army in combat, he was also required to create discord and confusion among Egypt's adversaries. Seth was also portrayed as a trickster deity, one who tricked humans just out of amusement and not out of malice, as Egyptians valued Ma'at, or divine order, more than anything. Seth may seem like an unlikely god to worship. However, Ma'at in Egyptian religion only flourished when it was opposed, and this was Seth's principal pursuit. In certain contemporary religious writings, he also defends the pharaoh and even the solar bark, the enchanted vessel that carries the gods and through which Ra traversed the sky each day. Tawi, the Egyptian name for Egypt, translates as the two lands. The lush area of land near the Nile River, known as the Black Land, was one, while the desert-like Red Land was the other. Seth was associated with the latter, with the color red, and with the underworld, because the sun constantly sets in the western desert. The deserts were thought to be the home of the underworld. He was identified with foreign countries and their inhabitants for the same reason. In the eyes of the Greeks, he was associated with Typhon, the god monster who challenged Zeus's strength and was sent to Tartarus in the eyes of the Greeks. Though the reason behind Seth's transformation from a hero god to an opponent of law and order is unknown, by the time the Osiris myth gained popularity during the New Kingdom, Seth also had some messed up family issues. Osiris and Isis were both described in Egyptian mythology as the siblings of Seth and Nephthys. Egypt's ruler at the time was Osiris, but jealousy got the best of Seth, and he developed a scheme to usurp the throne out of resentment for his brother's influence. According to some myths, Nephthys was tempted by Osiris's beauty and assumed the identity of Isis to woo the heavenly king and became pregnant with the deity Anubis. Then Seth ultimately made the decision to overthrow his brother. He had a gorgeous coffin fashioned out of the finest timbers and were customized to Osiris's precise measurements. After throwing a grand party and inviting all the Egyptian gods, Seth announced that he had a special surprise. The visitor who could fit inside the wooden box the best could take the casket home, as each attendee tried to enter the casket, but no one could fit. Unsurprisingly, when Osiris lay down inside the coffin, he discovered that it was the right size for him. Seth then closed the lid and threw the casket into the river, hoping that he would never have to see Osiris again. When the coffin drifted away, his wife Isis discovered him in Syria. That meant failure for Seth's plans. So Seth kept trying and would not give up. This time, he made sure to murder Osiris, dismembering him and dispersing the body parts all throughout the nation. Then Isis and Nephthys combed all of Egypt in search of the fragments of Osiris's body. Isis was able to reassemble and reanimate her husband for a little period, during which she gave birth to a child with him, thanks to her immense magic and with the essential help of Anubis, the god of the dead and embalming. Then Osiris resumed his voyage into the underworld, where he established himself as the ruler of the dead in the same manner as he did on earth. Seth set out to murder both Isis and her son Horus as soon as he could after discovering that Osiris had been reconstructed and Isis had given birth. Isis, terrified, put her infant into hiding in the Nile Delta to keep him safe from Seth. They spent some time living in the marshes in the hopes that Seth would not discover them there, but he did. So when Isis was gone gathering food, he sent a poisonous snake to attack him. Isis returned to the campfire and was horrified to see that Horus had been badly wounded. She wailed aloud and sobbed until the young deity was healed by Thoth, the Egyptian god of medicine. Horus earned the reputation of being the kid who escaped a fatal bite as a consequence. People preserved statues of Horus, stepping over crocodiles and clutching poisonous animals for protection, especially during the late period. To receive Horus's protection, they either kept these stels in their house or installed them in certain temples. The child developed into one of the most significant Egyptian deities. Throughout Egyptian history, he took on many different appearances, but the falcon was by far the most frequent. He had a very complicated personality and participated in a number of stories, the most significant of which being the contendings between Horus and Seth. In this story, a panel of gods is chosen to decide whether Osiris' son Horus or his brother Seth should succeed him as king. The tribunal didn't take into account the fact that Seth was the one who initially murdered and mutilated Osiris, and the two gods engaged in distinct contests. The gods would transform into hippopotami and hold their breath underwater as part of one of these games. The winner would be whoever surfaced last. Horus's mother Isis tricked Seth into emerging early by spearing him, yet despite this transgression, Horus triumphed in the end and was subsequently considered the heavenly embodiment of the king. It makes sense that Seth would become the Egyptian deity most frequently linked with violence and disorder after murdering and dismembering a fellow god and attempting to kill his infant nephew. It is crucial to emphasize that chaos does not imply evil. Ancient Egyptians were well recognized for the complexity of their gods, and in a sense, there wasn't really a good or evil Egyptian deity. The maintenance of order also depends on disorder, as per Egyptian myths, because the system can only work when it is constantly challenged. However, he was universally recognized as a deity who was capable of great wrath and disaster. To infuse the Egyptian army with God's fury and power, his picture was typically taken into battle. But he wasn't always all bad, and a series of pharaohs were named after him. Seth I was a great warrior who oversaw significant wars in Syria, notably the conquering of the Kadesh site. The deity was openly worshipped by ordinary Egyptians, as evidenced by the frequency with which his name appeared in their given names. In mythology, Seth occasionally also served as the solar bark's protector. The sun god Re and his entire crew were entranced every night, according to late writings, by the gigantic snake Apep. Seth was the only Egyptian deity able to withstand Apep's lethal gaze, and as a result, he was able to defeat the snake by driving his massive copper spear deep into its scaly body. So, with Seth's help, the solar bark could finish its nocturnal voyage and be prepared to reappear in the east just before dawn. So we can say that this Lord of Chaos was beyond good and evil and very complex, to say the least. And that's the best way to conclude the story. What do you think of him? Let us know down in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe button. See you next time around. Until then, stay mythically mad.